All right, let's shift focus now on the show. And the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, has said in its latest report that no amount of climate action after 2030 will be good enough to limit the rise in global temperatures within 1.5 degrees Celsius if the emissions pathway is not altered significantly in the next few years. UN scientists have laid out a plan essentially calling for a revolution in how we produce energy and power our world. The report mentions the carbon-free and low-carbon technologies available, as well as the potential for digitization through robotics, artificial intelligence, for supporting energy efficiency and renewable energy. Well, to talk more about climate action, we're joined by Richal, Dean of the Fletcher School, Tufts University, USA, someone who's worked on climate issues for decades, is member of the UN Secretary General's high-level advisory group on climate change and is visiting here in India. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. And Ms. Kite, first, before we get into the IPCC report and again calling for radical change and turn towards green energy, it's become so difficult to focus on all these issues in the last couple of years, given that we're just emerging from a pandemic, that there's a war currently going on for us in the media and for people like you who've been fighting on issues of climate change for decades now.
Yeah, we have every reason for distraction: the global pandemic, economic dislocation, and now a war in Europe. But the climate imperative doesn't change. We have to tackle climate change. The way of life that we want to have and that some people still strive to have is not going to be possible with climate impacts. But if we tackle climate change, and this report shows that there is still room to do that, we have a lot of the things we need, then we can have the kind of life that we want to have. So we have to be able to have political leaders that can walk and chew gum at the same time. The science is very clear. We now need political action.
Absolutely, and it's important, to stay on course and to keep the focus there for us in the media, for climate leaders and for political leaders as well. Tell us more about what the IPCC has called for this, radical new path, and we have just 8 years to really make it happen.
Yeah, so basically what the report says is that even if all of the policies and plans that governments have already put in, have announced, if we adhered to all of those, we would still be at twice the level of warming that we need to be at. So we would be at 3.2 degrees and we need to be at 1.5. So we need to sort of have a handbrake and a hairpin turn. We need a fast turnaround, which means that we have to get ourselves off fossil fuels very, very quickly. We need to peak our emissions in 2025. 43% of all of the cuts in emissions that we need have to come this decade. It shows us that the fall in the price of renewable technology, although inflation is having an impact at the moment, means that this is actually going to be cheaper than perhaps many people realize. And then once we've got the renewable energy technology, we need to drive that through transportation, through buildings and the built environment. We have to drive it also then through the revolution in how we have heavy industry. And here in India, everybody's talking about green hydrogen as a way to continue to produce green steel, green cement, and then potentially being able to export green energy. So there's huge opportunity, but the time with which we have to sort of plan the sort of change in our trajectory, we've kind of run out of time. And so in developed countries, there's going to have to be a very swinging cut in energy use. We have to be very energy efficient, and we have to make the pivot to renewable energy immediately.
Right, but Dean Kite, for India, our concerns remain that, in our reaction to the IPCC report, we've said it's a global collective action problem that has to be addressed. There needs to be cooperation, and essentially we mean that, we need help from developing countries, from developed countries, in terms of technology, in terms of, green energy as well, and that remains India's position, and we've said that we will continue to speak out for developing nations.
So I don't think I think the Indian position is well understood. First of all, India has an extraordinary green growth story itself, which is underway, but nobody underestimates how complicated that is. There's a big social dimension to weaning India off coal and onto renewable energy. There will be an extraordinary upside to that: cleaner air, better jobs for more people in the future. But we understand that that's a difficult transition, and there needs to be international support for that. There also needs to be international support for ramping up renewable energy here and the new technologies that are being pioneered by Indian firms, because India's green story will also be a launching pad or a staging post for help to other developing countries, to the global south. So there is the potential for India to be a green engine of growth, not just in India, but across the global south. Obviously, you see that in the idea behind the International Solar Alliance. But we have to stop talking about it and start doing it. And I think that's why the international community has to come in behind India and help India succeed, because if India succeeds, the world succeeds.
Absolutely. And final words, are you hopeful that now with this report, hopefully we can at some point, maybe when this war ends, bring the focus back on this and the urgency that's needed?
Well, I think the war actually underlines or puts an exclamation point at the end of the sentence about we need to move to renewable energy. Obviously, this is a war which is entangled in Europe's dependence upon Russian hydrocarbons.
That's right.
Europe now has to move away. So I think it just underlines the fact that we've got no time and we need to work together to make this pivot.
All right, Dean Kai, thank you so much for speaking to us here at NDTV on this very, very urgent and important issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, time for us to slip into a short break. Coming up on the other side, petrol and diesel